Hello, and welcome to Day 24 of the Legend of Mathmatica² Kickstarter. Today's numbers are $3,241 and 43 backers. We gained one person, so I was surprised. But, as for the subject matter for today, I wanted to talk a little bit about Kickstarter Tactics and some of the mistakes we made along the way. We're coming up on the end of it, and usually you wait until the very end to do a postmortem, but I feel like I might as well do one now. At the moment, one of the first things, of course, was the false start. We started about 2 weeks earlier than we had intended. In that 2 weeks' time, what could have happened? Well, we could have had a full trailer up at the very beginning, which was definitely an unfortunate loss, but we did start getting them up a little bit later on. Certain elements of the page could have been a little bit more complete, but that was one of the bigger portions of it. Now, the other part of it, although this was something that wouldn't have been solved by a later start, it would have been slightly better, but was actually building up a groundswell. So this is one of the very important tactics for any particular Kickstarter, and I think this is one of the most important things. Is making sure that you actually have a community behind you, at least near the start. This is for video games in particular. For other things, I'm certain there are other tactics. This is just for video games. Is actually getting a team, getting some people around you to have buzz. And there's a bunch of different ways to approach that. I mean, one of them is just being active on the different forms of social media, and it's like being active on the different forms of social media is definitely one of the things. Going to conventions, making sure to show up, letting people know it's like, hey, we're doing this thing. We're real people. We do stuff. Running a Discord channel for your project. And these are all very strong things. Now, I will say on the social media side of things, if you are a very strong social mediaite, that's a word, I just made that up, mediaite, somebody who is fairly commonly out there, fairly commonly tweeting and retweeting and all that sort of thing, then you should be able to do this on your own, but likely it's better to hire someone to do that for you. Get a social media specialist or basically a media specialist, somebody who their whole thing is proliferating information across the different social medias. They'll have more ideas on exactly how to do that. They'll have different tools for posting on multiple places all at the same time, that sort of thing. So that's one aspect of advice there. Additionally, the other aspect of things is like the amount of updates you do during your kickstarting thing isn't necessarily relevant. Now, that's part of the reason why I did the dailies, was just to make that very clear with this whole thing. The amount of updates you do doesn't matter. It's more about the content of those different things. Whether you're giving pertinent information or letting people know that you've hit a backer goal or that sort of thing. That's really what you want to be doing. Is, if anything, you want to be showing people that yes, people care about your game. People care about what you're doing, and that adds validity to the thing. Like, if you have more people that are looking at it and saying, hey, this is awesome, that adds validity, which is, goes back to my first point of building a groundswell before you even get out there. On that point, because it is very important, so I will come back to it, the other aspect of this is that concept of that first, let's say, 5 days of your campaign. The first 5 days of the campaign is like super important. Making sure it gets out on all of the social medias that you have exposure to, because all of the social medias that you have exposure to, and making sure that everyone sees it and knows it, because after that first set, you have that psychological thing, which I did mention earlier on, which is that depending on how many people you have and how close you are to actually getting the thing backed, that will determine a little bit about how many more people you get. It's actually not necessarily exponential, but it is something to keep in mind, is that the closer you are actually to completion earlier on in the project's cycle, the more likely that you will actually draw more people in. Because once they know that this is going to be a sure thing, that usually means that more people are willing to get on, because now they're like, oh, this is actually coming out, so that means the goals are actually going to be a thing and all that stuff. So this is a very important thing. Those first 5 to 10 days are very important. It's like your first 5 to 10 days and your last 10 days. As stated in previous things, it slumps in the middle. And I do think there's merit to at least drawing attention to your product once you're at that middle day. And just saying, hey, we're here. And don't forget, put in that little plug for getting some backerage. So anyways, we have all of those aspects to this. And I should note on the social media part of the whole deal, you don't necessarily need to cast your net wide, but rather cast your net deep. So if you have a particular space that you feel you have a lot of familiarity with, a lot of reach into, and have an understanding of the kind of general demographic there, reaching into that space and finding your, your super supporters, the people who are really into the product and would really work towards proliferating the information on it. That's one of the things that you want to be looking for. So say you're very into doing things on the Reddit indie dev space. That would be a great space to find other people that are really, really interested in the type of game that you're making. Say you're making for sake of argument, say you're making a JRPG, so you find other people that are into JRPGs and want to see more of those made. So that would be one angle. Or if you are in the Twitter space, making sure that you're using all of those hashtags, hashtag indie dev, hashtag Kickstarter, hashtag crowdfunding, hashtag indie game. Those are super important because, the reposting bots are looking for those. So as soon as you put that in there, you'll post it up and you'll get like 3 retweets because 3 bots caught the hashtag and went, here it is. But more importantly, also other people who are looking for Kickstarters and that sort of thing, they are also looking for these things. They will actually put that into the search bar and look for those. So that's very useful. I think it's very important information for any update that you're going to be putting out. And other than that, the other thing that I would say is, and this is my personal opinion, I think there are a lot of people who have been very successful with Kickstarter, and they've used a lot of the tactics that I've noted, and some of these tactics actually do cost some money to do, although you can figure out ways to grassroots them. But the other thing I would say is, you want to enter into a Kickstarter, at least in my opinion, you want to kind of enter into it with the understanding that you may or may not succeed, and knowing that, utilizing it as kind of a promotional dealie. I've known some devs who've been massively successful on their Kickstarter things, and they didn't really put all that much work into it. They just made a super awesome trailer, which I should note that's really important to have an awesome trailer, have a good trailer. It says what your game is, says what your game does, says why it's fun, and says why you should back it. But I digress. Have a good trailer. But additionally, with those guys, it's like they put out an awesome trailer and put the thing out, and it turns out that they had already gotten a publisher deal, but they'd already gotten a publisher deal, so they could do with or without the public's knowledge of the thing, which meant they were less. Which, on a psychological level, that means you're less likely to soil the pot, so to speak. Do too much in the wrong direction, or do anything desperate with the Kickstarter. So kind of approaching it as like, this could win, or this could lose. But in the end, your whole dealie is you want more people to buy the game when it finally comes out. Like, in a sense, people do approach Kickstarter like it's a pre-order thing, but really it's more just, it's a show of faith in the developer that they're going to put the game out there. And so that's one of the other reasons why the character of your team is actually super important. That, just basically saying your team are humans, first off, and that there's a story there. I think that's useful, noting that this game didn't just appear out of nowhere. There were people working on the title for a long time, passionate people, or I think don't remember the name of the title, but I know of a couple of devs who one of the way that they structured their trailer was such that they showed some gameplay, and then the actual dev, either the head of the team or someone else, came in and noted, just like, hey, we've been working on this for like several years now, and we've had some ups and downs, and here's where we're at right now, and this is a story of triumph, essentially. But the other angle to look at it would be not just a story of the dev team and the game itself, but also perhaps the story of the devs, because I know of several projects that they're built around the legacy of the developer. Because you did have those Kickstarters that had star power behind them, such as the Mighty Number 9 thing, which, that wasn't really successful, but, it was successful, but it was unsuccessful by other means. Or the Egavania. Those flew on the personalities that were pushing them forward, or rather the skill sets, the proven skill sets of them. And again, this comes back to the idea that it's a statement of faith in the team, that they believe your team can actually bring this thing together. And that is evidenced either by the competency that your trailers put together with, or the competency that your team shows when they're talking about their project or talking about themselves. Their grit and determination, if you're telling the story of what your team has done up until this point, or even just something as simple as you got out on all of those different platforms at the same time with something with a very, very high quality, either trailer or website or other thing. Something that shows that you guys are really serious about this. And I know that's one of the biggest issues that crowdfunding gigs and Kickstarter runs into, is anybody can do this stuff. Anybody can get up here and, put out a game and say, hey, give me money. But it takes another step to show them that you have what it takes to actually not only make the thing, but also, not only make the thing, but make a good thing. And I suppose while I'm at it, the other big thing, and this was one of the mistakes that we made, was, setting the goal way high. Now, it was based off of some calculation. It was based off of a lot of calculations, particularly things taking into account all of our different backer goals and making sure that we could meet all of those. But regardless, the important thing is the juxtaposition of the type of project that's put forth and the amount of money put on it. Now, regardless of whether or not the numbers are actually very well calculated, where it's like, yes, actually, we do need this amount to make the thing. It's all about the perception. When somebody looks at the project and they say, that doesn't look like a $50,000 game, that looks like a $10,000 game. And because they don't necessarily see all the sausages made, they're not going to know the actual numbers. They're just going to look at it and say, I think it's this. And so knowing what number to put up is also important. Although really what you want to do is just put up what you need, regardless of what you think it's going to look like, because if you've done your calculations right, you know what you need. So, regardless of what anybody else says, this is what you need to hit. So, you need to put that there. Also, on the note of the budget aspect, if you can actually create a visual representation of how your budget is split out. I mean, I know people like putting those up, but it's not required, but it's useful, particularly if you think that your numbers seem unbelievable at first blush, and you need to actually figure out how to show that they are valid. So, having a little pie chart on the bottom of the thing helps, but really, a lot of your people are gonna look at the top, see this, and then click this, or see this, and click away. But that's all I've got to say on just Kickstarter tactics and some of the mistakes we made along the way on this one. As previously noted, there will be an announcement at the end of this whole thing. But, yeah. I'm going to go ahead and bring us over to the sign-off here. So, play the games you want to play, boyos. This is Redcode, signing off.